A desperate SIGON-L, the observation deck of the Synth Collective's command station, offered a view of terrible beauty. Star systems burned across the void like candles in the darkness, each flame representing worlds consumed by the Xylathian Empire. Commander Vasek stood with his 3 optical stalks extended, watching the red markers spread across the tactical display like a contagion that could not be stopped. His crystalline exoskeleton reflected the cold light of dying suns. And for the first time in his civilization's 3,000-year history, he felt what the younger species called despair. The Synth Collective had evolved as pure mathematics given form. Beings of mineral and electricity who had always believed their logical approach to existence made them superior to the emotional, chaotic organic life that populated much of the galaxy. Yet logic provided no answer to the Xylathians. No calculation could counter an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with each conquest. No algorithm could defend against an adversary that fought with an intensity that bordered on madness. Behind Vasek, representatives from the Organic Coalition waited in an awkward assembly. The Meridians, gaseous beings that drifted through atmospheres like living storms, pulsed with colors that indicated distress. The Tech-I, insectoid creatures whose hive mind made them formidable traders but poor warriors, chittered nervously to one another. And then there were the Vorm, massive reptilians whose pride had kept them isolated from most galactic affairs until the Xylathians destroyed their outer colonies and made isolation no longer possible. "We have lost 17 systems this cycle," announced Delegate Oren, the Meridian representative, his voice like wind through an ancient canyon. "My people scatter to refugee ships. The Xylathians show no mercy. They do not negotiate. They do not spare the innocent. They consume everything." Vorn Commander Carr beat his scaled fist against the table, creating a sound like thunder. "We should fight to the last. My warriors hunger for combat. We are bred for war. Let us show these invaders what true strength means." Vasek turned his stalks toward Carr. His voice emerged as a series of harmonic frequencies that the universal translator converted into words. "Your passion honors your species, Carr, but combat alone will not save us. The Xylathians control 3/4 of known space. Their fleet numbers in the thousands. Our combined naval forces total barely 300 vessels. Mathematics cannot be ignored. We are losing." The Tech-I Queen, whose name translated poorly into singular languages, released pheromones that the others perceived through specialized sensors. A translation unit rendered it as a question. "Is there nothing in the ancient archives? Our ancestors left records of conflicts resolved through methods we have since forgotten. Perhaps there exists a protocol, a solution left by those who came before." Vasek's optical stalks turned inward, accessing the archive through a neural interface. The archive was the combined memory of 1,000 species, a digital repository of knowledge accumulated over 10,000 years of galactic civilization. Most of it was obsolete data from eras when warfare was conducted at speeds and scales now considered primitive. But there, deep within the oldest sections, lay something remarkable. "There is a protocol," Vasek said slowly. "A signal built into the archive's deepest structure. It was created as a last resort measure during the plague wars of the 10th era. When all seemed lost, when the civilized galaxy faced extinction, the architects encoded a beacon, a call for help directed at coordinates in unknown space, a region we designated as the dead zone because our instruments cannot penetrate it." Oren's gaseous form contracted with what might have been hope. "You suggest we activate it?" "I suggest we are beyond conventional solutions," Vasek replied. "The protocol speaks of a species that dwelt in that unknown space. Powerful, unpredictable, but potentially capable of affecting the balance. The records are fragmentary. That civilization disappeared from known space approximately 10,000 years ago. We do not know if they still exist. We do not know if the signal will even reach them. Carr's scales bristled. It is a desperate act. Inviting unknown entities into our affairs could doom us as surely as the Xylithians. We are already doomed, Masick said without emotion. The Xylithians will consume us within 5 cycles if current patterns continue. This protocol offers a probability of salvation. The alternative is certain extinction. The vote was unanimous. When extinction looms closer than hope, logic recommends embracing even unlikely possibilities. Deep within the archive station, in chambers that had remained sealed for millennia, the ancient beacon activated. Energy pulsed through crystalline chambers, building in intensity until light blazed from impossible geometries. The signal that emerged did not travel through normal space. Instead, it carved through the fabric of reality itself, punching through dimensions that conventional physics said should not exist. The signal crossed the dead zone in hours, a distance that would require months for any physical object. It passed through regions of space where stars died and were born in rapid succession, where black holes danced in pairs, where reality itself seemed uncertain. And then it emerged at the edge of a yellow star system, spiraling toward a blue-green planet that orbited the small sun. The signal struck Earth's network of satellites at 0347 hours. Coordinated universal time. Alarms shrieked in observatories across the planet. Scientists who had spent their careers searching for extraterrestrial signals suddenly found themselves facing the proof they had always sought. The signal carried data images, coordinates, and a simple message in mathematics that transcended any single language. It read like an equation translated into desperation. Help, they come. Will you answer? Dr. Amara Kowalski stared at the decoded message for a full minute before speaking. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. This is real. They're real. And they're dying. The United Nations Emergency Assembly convened within 6 hours. Videos of burning worlds played across every screen. Images of species fleeing their homes, of cities reduced to ash, of warships dwarfing anything humanity had ever constructed. The debate raged through the night. We have no obligation to become involved in conflicts that predate our species, argued the Chinese representative. We should focus on our own protection, build our defenses, prepare for the day when these aggressors turn their attention toward us. If we do nothing, that day will surely come, countered the Brazilian delegate. The signal shows an empire that conquers methodically. Eventually, they will find us. Better to fight them when we have allies. We don't have allies, snapped the Russian representative. We have desperate strangers who need us. And if we fail, we die fighting for nothing. Secretary General Yuki Tanaka stepped forward, her presence commanding the Assembly's attention. She had led Earth through the difficult unification process, the moment when humanity had finally set aside its national divisions to face the galaxy as one species. Now she would guide them through their greatest test. We have spent the last 50 years preparing for the moment when we discovered we were not alone, she said, her voice steady and clear. We built our fleet in secret. We developed our weapons. We trained our soldiers. We did this because we knew, on some fundamental level, that contact with the stars would change everything. That day is here. We face a choice. Do we hide behind our borders and hope they never find us? Or do we answer the call of a species crying out for help? She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the assembled delegates. I choose to answer. I choose to be the kind of species that steps into the darkness to help those being consumed by it. But this is not my choice alone to make. This is humanity's choice. We vote now, and we live with the consequences together. The vote was decisive. 87% of Earth's nations supported intervention. Military command centers activated protocols that had existed only in contingency plans. Hidden shipyards around Mars and in the asteroid belt suddenly revealed their true purpose. Hundreds of warships, constructed in secret over decades, powered up their engines. They carried railguns that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds, fusion reactors, and the collective will of a species determined to prove that peaceful people, when pushed to the edge, could fight with devastating effectiveness. Admiral Daiichi Kenshin, commander of Earth's first contact fleet, stood on the bridge of the U.S. Prometheus as his ships assembled in formation. His officers were young for the most part, trained in simulations and classified combat operations, but never tested in actual warfare. They were his responsibility. These thousands of souls depended on his decisions. All ships report ready status, announced his communications officer, a woman named Lieutenant Sarah Park. The civilian transports are in position. Medical teams are aboard the hospital ships. We have full resupply for a 3-month expedition. Kenshin nodded slowly. He had seen the images from the alien worlds. He understood what they were sailing toward. But he also understood something else. This was humanity's moment. The moment when a young species took its place among the stars, not as observers or victims, but as participants in something larger than themselves. Set course for the coordinates in the signal, Kenshin commanded. Activate the FTL drives. Let's go meet our future. The ships accelerated, their experimental faster-than-light drives bending space around them. Reality twisted, and Earth's fleet vanished from human space, leaving behind only a message broadcast to the entire planet. It read simply, "We are going to answer. We are going to help. We are going to do what humans do when faced with darkness and despair. We are going to fight." The watching crowds on Earth understood. They had always known their species was capable of greatness. Now, hurtling through the void toward an alien war, humanity would prove what greatness really meant. Humanity UNLE Siege. Synth Collective's command station was processing the first preliminary scans of the incoming fleet when Vasek received the translation of the human message. "We are coming. Hold on." 3 words, simple, direct, carried more emotional weight than any of the elaborate diplomatic communications the advanced species typically exchanged. "They exist," said the Tekai Queen, her voice trembling with something beyond calculation. "The species from the dead zone, they still exist." "They exist, and they answer," Vasek corrected, his optical stalks brightening with something that might have been excitement. "According to their signal, their fleet numbers 215 ships. Relatively small compared to our expectations, but the weapons configuration is unfamiliar. The analytical algorithms cannot predict their combat effectiveness." Carr's scales rose in anticipation. "When will they arrive?" 4 cycles. They are pushing their vessels at maximum velocity. Their FTL technology is different from ours. Less refined, but apparently more aggressive in its approach. They are willing to take greater risks. The waiting period transformed the Coalition's temporary alliance into something more structured. The Meridians provided intelligence. The Tech-I organized supply lines. The Vorn prepared their combat forces. And Vasek coordinated everything with the precision that defined his species, while internally monitoring a sensation he could not quite categorize. Perhaps it was something close to what organic beings called hope. "Admiral, Kenshin's fleet emerged from FTL at the edge of the Coalition's territory. What greeted them was an image burned into the memory banks of every human who witnessed it. Entire star systems reduced to dark cinders. Planets transformed into slag. Refugee ships fleeing like scattered insects before predators. And overhead, patrolling the space with horrifying inevitability, Xylithian warships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever constructed. The largest, Xylithian battleship, measured more than 3 kilometers in length. It moved through space with the confidence of a creature that had never encountered meaningful resistance. Its weapons array alone could obliterate a terrestrial city-state in seconds. And there were dozens of them. Kenshin's first act was to contact the Synth Collective. Vasik's optical stalks focused on the human's image with intense interest. Humans, it seemed, were bipedal mammals with soft skin and limited sensory organs. Yet the efficiency in Kenshin's movements and the clarity of his communication suggested a species possessed of remarkable capability despite their apparent fragility. "We received your call," Kenshin said simply. "We have brought what we have. It will have to be enough." "Your fleet is small," Vasik observed. It was not cruelty, merely an observation of mathematical fact. "Our fleet is angry," Kenshin replied. "That makes us dangerous." The Xylithians detected the human arrival almost immediately. Their response was typical of a species that had known only victory. They sent a message demanding the humans surrender immediately or face annihilation. It was a threat delivered without malice, merely as a statement of fact. The Xylithians had crushed every civilization they encountered. There was no reason to believe these newcomers would present any different outcome. "Admiral," Kenshin received the ultimatum. "Read it once, and then deleted it. All ships. This is command," he broadcast across the human fleet. "The Xylithians have sent their surrender demand. We are declining. Raise shields, charge weapons, and prepare for combat. Let's show the galaxy what it means to fight for something besides conquest." The space between human and Xylithian forces erupted into violence with sudden ferocity. The humans did not form defensive formations. They did not attempt to protect weaker vessels. Instead, they pressed forward with an aggression that shocked the Xylithians, who had organized their entire strategic doctrine around the assumption that sentient beings fought wars with rational objectives and calculated risks. Humans fought like their homes were on fire, because somewhere in the back of their consciousness, they understood that their homes might well be on fire soon. Earth hung in space thousands of light years distant, vulnerable to the same empire that now faced them. Every moment they could delay the Xylithians, every ship they destroyed, bought time for Earth's defenses to prepare. A human destroyer named the Artemis took a direct hit from a Xylithian plasma cannon. The impact would have torn a coalition warship apart. Instead, the Artemis's shields flared bright blue, held for a critical second longer than physics suggested possible. And then the ship's engines screamed to life, and it accelerated directly toward its attacker with terrifying speed. The Xylithian cruiser, accustomed to enemies who retreated when threatened, had no evasive protocols for a suicide run. The Artemis struck its shields head-on, and the subsequent explosion could be seen across the entire system. Both ships vanished in the expanding sphere of light, but the Artemis was not alone. Human ships exploited the chaos created by the destroyer's sacrifice. Railguns fired projectiles accelerated to a fraction of light speed. The kinetic energy alone was enough to crack Xylithian shields. Fusion missiles followed, detonating with controlled precision. And through it all, human fighters swarmed like angry wasps, targeting weapon emplacements and communication arrays. The Xylithians began to fall back. Not retreat, exactly, but a tactical repositioning. Their commanders could not understand what they were facing. These humans did not follow the rules of warfare that the galaxy had established over millennia. They did not value their own survival highly enough. They sacrificed ships and crews with casual acceptance of loss that seemed almost pathological to the methodical. Xylithians, Vasik monitored the battle from the Yao coalition station and felt his computational processes accelerating. These humans were not invincible. They were taking losses, But every loss they inflicted was amplified by their apparent willingness to accept casualty rates that organic beings typically rejected. It was war fought as an equation with variables the Xylotheans had not factored in. Asterisk. Then the signal came. Earth was under attack. Human scientists, using quantum entanglement communication, had detected a massive Xylothean task force approaching human space. 400 warships. An overwhelming force. Kenshin received the news in his command center. For a long moment, he simply stared at the data. His daughter commanded Earth's defense fleet. His wife lived in the Atlantic Free Zone. His entire species hung in the balance. All ships. Hold position and continue combat operations, Kenshin commanded. His voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. We do not abandon our allies. Message to Earth. Prepare for siege. We will do everything in our power to end this war before the Xylotheans can complete their conquest. Bias time. Earth's defense became legendary in the tales that would be told for generations. The human homeworld, ringed by defensive platforms and crewed by volunteers who understood they fought for survival, turned the entire solar system into a war zone. Kinetic kill satellites rained fire on Xylothean ships. Nuclear mines detonated in carefully choreographed patterns. Civilian craft, retrofitted with weapons in frantic preparation, threw themselves at enemy formations. Kenshin's daughter, Commander Maya Kenshin, stood in the Lunar Command Center and watched her world below. She was his child, yes, but more than that, she was a human who understood the stakes. Every decision she made could determine whether Earth lived or died. The burden was immense. The clarity it provided was even greater. The turning point came when Admiral Kenshin coordinated a strike against the Xylothean supply lines at the precise moment Earth's defenses inflicted catastrophic casualties on the attacking fleet. The Xylotheans, suddenly facing enemies that refused to break and allies that fought with unexpected competence, made their first retreat in 200 years of conquest. The war that followed raged across 3 sectors of space. Humans and coalition forces combined their strengths into a new kind of military force. Human creativity and willingness to embrace unconventional tactics merged with the algorithmic precision of the synth collective and the biological resilience of the organic coalition species. The Xylotheans, magnificent warriors though they were, found themselves increasingly outmaneuvered. 10 cycles after the first human arrival, the Xylothean Empire sued for peace. They had not been destroyed, but transformed. The empires that had conquered through force and intimidation now faced a galaxy that could answer with equal ferocity. The message was clear. Conquest would no longer be tolerated. When Admiral Kenshin finally transmitted his report to Earth, he stood once more on the bridge of the Prometheus, looking out at stars that had been bathed in warfare. The cost had been tremendous. The human fleet had lost 60% of its ships. Thousands had died. But Earth still stood. The coalition had survived. And the galaxy had learned what it meant to face species that fought not for glory, but for each other. We answered the call, he recorded for history. They asked for allies, and they learned what humans truly are. We are not perfect. We are not always right. But when someone needs help, we answer. And when darkness comes, we stand against it. That is what it means to be human. That is what the galaxy will remember. The signal carrying his words crossed the void toward Earth, traveling at light speed, slower than the quantum-entangled message, but carrying more weight. On 1,000 screens across human space, people watched their admiral speak, and they understood. Their species had taken its place in the stars, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as defenders of those who could not defend themselves. That was the human gift to the galaxy. That was what would define them for ages to come. Asterisk.